Hello, welcome to Flory Models. I'm Flory. First of all, warm welcome to all the new members. I had loads of new members this week and I haven't been on the forum as much as normal to welcome you all in, and some of you haven't even gone onto the forum. So make sure it's important that you use your same username when you register for the forum, and that way it ties in together and you can get in there pretty much straight away. If you use slightly different things like a 1 on the end, or some of you two little characters and things like that, when you go to the actual, for the forum, for signing up for the forum, obviously it's quite hard to tell who's who. So I have to delete them off and then you get in and everything else. Because you delete them off, obviously your username slightly changes and obviously when you type in your one you can't get in. So that's how we've had a few problems this week. So anyway, first of all, congratulations to everybody who took part in the diorama group build. We had some fantastic entries. Not many people completed, and I have to say, nor did I at this point and all the rest of it. But well done to everybody who did. It's actually some fantastic work, some lovely scratch building as well. And to be totally honest, I went through them all and having a look through, and I learned an absolute stack of stuff that really haven't learned before, haven't seen before, haven't done, and it's inspired me to really get one done. So I will be doing one at some point. I might do it as a video so I can make an idiot of myself at the same time as I was originally going to do. But as I say, I picked up loads and loads of stuff. So what we'd like to do at some point, for especially sort of 3 or 4 of you have done absolutely fantastic and detailed builds of how you did your work, so we'd like to get them out onto the main site so everybody can see how you did it. So what we'll do is we'll make arrangements with you, get in contact with you when the judging is revealed about if we can have it out on the main site. So anyway, Stefan did, the member of the team, Stefan, he did the judging for this on his own. I said, Stefan, you know more about this than I do. Go and have a go, have a look round and everything. So he's picked his two, the winner and the second place one for it. I'm not going to reveal it yet because I haven't finished doing the video. We do the end of group build videos. Haven't quite finished it yet. So what I'm going to do is we'll reveal who won and who came second, and everybody else, and the prizes and bits and pieces like that will be next week's show when I would have finished the video, and that will be up for that. So we're done. So it really was, I know it was tough judging for him and everything else like that, so it was down to him, and I must admit I totally agree with his decision as well. So that made it nice and easy. Got to remember, the Battle of Britain group build ends on the 28th, which is Monday. So if you've done the Battle of Britain SIG, you've got to get that one finished ASAP over the weekend. The multi-engine group build, as we spoke about it, I'll just recap, starts on the 26th. Obviously that's going to go on, so I'll unlock that tonight, so then that way it's open for tomorrow. So that way a lot of you have put in some of your photos of what you're going to build. You're going to have to move them over to the actual start page for the actual one. So we've only got one category in there, it just says aircraft. So if you pop all your aircraft ones in there, and then obviously you completed to go through, but it is on the forum, it's in there. We had a bit of a change around, so I moved so the old ones out of the way. So that's all done, you can get those down in there. Then obviously after that we've got the eggplane start, which is on the 2nd. And then the new one, which we've had to figure out, a couple of emails from people, and I think it's a great idea. What we're going to do is a armoured SIG. So it's only going to be a 6-month one, it's not a full build. And what we can do is, if we get enough interest with it, we'll turn it into a full SIG. We'll do a different type of armoured one perhaps later on in the year, for something for sort of, more sort of heavy metal, or certainly vehicles and things like that. So we'll get a group build sorted out perhaps in the future, but for the moment it's just a SIG, so it's only a 3-month one. Like that. So at the moment, if you pop on down there, you'll see it out there actually in the actual SIGs and group builds, and basically it's a poll, because at the moment it's going to be World War II, so it can either be British, Russian, German, American. So what you can actually do is click the one you want. At the moment German's leading quite a long way, so if you fancy doing something else, post your vote up in there. At the end of the day, whoever come out on top, that will be the SIG will actually be. So, and it'll move through like that. But that's F4 City's heading that one up, so well done for him, putting time in that, and he's got a few helpers with that as well. So anyway, this week, I know I'm rattling through quietly, it's because I've got loads to go through this week, which I've pre-recorded and everything else like that. So anyway, this week my idea was I was going to get everything sort of painted and sprayed up and done and everything else, but I have had the nightmare from hell from start to finish with this particular kit of the Corsair. Now this is the Trumpeter Corsair, and just a quick recap before I play you the video on this one. Obviously it's got resin cockpit, it's got resin wheel wells, resin engine bays, resin engine, resin cowl, and everything else. So in some ways it's been an absolute nightmare from start to finish, and this is the reason why. Okay, I'm going to call this one sort of grumble of the week, and it's things as I make my way through this hobby that really wind me up and piss me off big time. Okay, this particular one is all about aftermarket parts and things like that. I'm going to call this one for resin in particular. Photo etch, yeah, annoys me sometimes, but this really annoys me. Now, we all know why we use photo etch and resin parts for really detailing, because here we've got here is the Corsair that I'm building just here, original part, and to be honest it's pretty horrible and plain and everything else like this, and this here is obviously a replacement one that we've got for it, which is obviously got lovely, it's got details of latches and everything else that goes along on the bottom here and everything else like that, and it's very, very nice. Okay, so you think, right, okay, well, you look at the little bag for it, okay, and there's no instructions, so you assume it's a straightforward replacement part for this one here. And when you see the two, you can understand why, because it is pretty boring. So it's an obvious choice. You think, yeah, we're going to upgrade that part, we're going to spend a couple of quid upgrading it, everything else. There's no instructions, so you'd assume it just fits straight on. Well, like everything on this kit, it's really nowhere like it. Just to give you a run through, okay, this has got a cockpit in it that doesn't fit, so it's been sanded to an inch of its life. It still doesn't fit completely, and it was bulging so much it actually fractured the plastic work on the side of this when the fuselage halves came together. Okay, and I sanded it till it's translucent. You can actually see through the resin. Sanded through the floor, because the floor is that tight to the bottom here. Even sanding off the plastic down the bottom here, you can almost still see straight through it. Okay, so once we did all of that, everything else, we moved on to the wheel wells on this particular one. Guess what? They don't fit either, but you know, they are a bit of an improvement on the other one. So you think, right, okay, it was well worth the fighting and the anger and resin dust everywhere and everything else. Okay, so then we moved on to the gun bays. Now the gun bays had very little in the way of instruction of how they fit in there, but there again, they're more detailed, certainly a vast improvement over the kit one. So you sort of bite the bullet and move through everything else like that. Where it came to a head though for me this week was really fitting what was supposed to be a drop-in replacement part, because there is no instructions for it. Okay, that what should really happen is, in hindsight, the engine, we glue the engine on the front like this, okay, and then here we've got it here, just fits on the front of the ring and it goes over, and guess what, it doesn't fit, it doesn't go over the end. Okay, so how do you fit it on? You know, do you go along, we just undo this one down here and put it in. Oops, dropping it on the floor. Okay, do you just go along and fit it on and everything else? So originally I stuck it to the back of the engine and was going to put it on, but it doesn't seem to line up particularly, so it has to go from the inside. So I tried to do it that way, and guess what, it just doesn't go. So we've had to cut it and spread it. So what happens is we're going to get this on and physically going to have to spread it around the back of this engine, okay, like this, to get it back in. But there again, it still basically doesn't fit in there, not like the original part. Okay, the original part will go onto here. Okay, he says, trying to fit it all in, just like this. It slides over the top of the engine with no problem at all, okay, with no interference, and then the entire thing will slide over onto here and away we'll go. All right. So my grumble is, what's the point really of going around and super detailing all this edge, which, you know, don't get me wrong, whoever did this did a cracking job of it, it's absolutely great, but at what point did they actually do it perfectly, obviously to scale? Perhaps they got the plan to the real aircraft, but really there's no point having this if it doesn't fit on it. So really, you know, what's the point of doing it in the first place? Because when you marry these two up, it doesn't even look like the cowls are actually open anyway. So we're going to have to spread this out and actually open it up and put joiners in to make it to the correct width, like this one is, to fit on. So really, it's not so much of who's made these and all the rest of it. It really is, for the guys who are doing the resin work and making masters up and everything else, it's all very well making them up to be perfectly in scale, but if it doesn't fit on the aircraft you're working with, what's the point of doing it in the first place? And we all know, right, fair enough, we're going to need some modifications to make them fit onto the actual aircraft itself. We appreciate sometimes, because of the way the casting of the resin's done, particularly, you know, Ares is a classic, it's very in-depth sort of casting the way they are, so we know the blocks and the sides have to be thick, because otherwise when you move them from the actual plugs it's just going to snap. So we understand they have to be sanded down, but can you give us a clue on how far we have to do it? Perhaps some instructions would be a little bit more useful on how to do it. For instance, it's just the same for the engine. It says here, just put the engine together and pop it in. That's all you actually get with this. Nothing else with this instructions at all. It just says put the front on, put it in, and away you go. No, you don't, because you actually need to install, like we did on this one, and go around and put it to the same form as the kit part is as well. All these little rods coming up, which it sort of fails to mention actually on those. And obviously I've done wiring and thing in this one as well, but nowhere does it mention anything about this. So the kit one, in theory, is better than the resin part. So really, my gripe is this week, what's the point of having resin and making it look fantastic if it doesn't fit? So there you go, my rant completely over for that one, but it has driven me mad. Anything that could go wrong on this kit has really gone wrong. And I think it's one of those ones where normally a lot of people, and I used to as well, would literally, right, that goes in a box and I'll start something else and work through. But I really don't like to do that, because otherwise they just gather dust. And obviously from this one as well, it's over £100 worth of resin sat in this kit as it is. Then you got the cost of the kit, it's another 50 quid. So it's 150 quid's worth just to sit in a box. Can't really go with that. So it needs to sort of work through, but it has been a complete nightmare from start to finish. But anyway, she is now all done and ready for painting, and that's what I'm going to be doing later on today. We'll get that one done. The Phantom is almost ready for painting as well, but so I got caught up big time with that one. We had loads of deliveries in last week and everything else. So what I like to do is done a new thing. Basically, I call it first look. Okay, and this is where I haven't seen what's in the box before. Stick it in front of me and I have a look at it, just like this. Okay then, so if we're going to have our first look in the box. So first up we've got is Skunk Works, this is the Reaper. So obviously you get the Predator and the Reaper. Easiest way I can tell, apart from the overall size, the Reaper's a little bit bigger, is that the tail planes on the actual Predator go downwards, on the Reaper go upwards. There you go, that's my quick tip for you. Having a look at it, flimsy box. Okay, I quite enjoy doing is what I call my first look. Well there you go, that's my first impression of how comes the bag is that big, and yet you've got all that on the box as well. So here we go. Never mind, bag is split open already. So we just pop that out of the way and see what you get in your bag. So we have, let's get these decals moved out of the way. As you'd imagine, your standard type of decals we've got here. US Air Force obviously, even though the RAF fly this one as well. And then obviously we've got some for some weapons, which I presume are sort of GBU-10, something like that. Little clear glass fret. Obviously we've got no windows on this, which means very little in the way of masking, but we've obviously got a couple of wing tips, and this will be the sensor off of the pod under the chin, little one there. Instructions themselves, we've got a call out here on the front for obviously doing your basics of how it's going to be. And as you can imagine, it's extremely straightforward. Two wings go together, bit of fuselage working together. Anybody who remembers the good old Matchbox kits from back in the day, it's very similar to one of those going together. It's very much a basic aircraft, but as you can imagine, it's all wings. Okay, so there's your wings actually off of it. Looking at the styrene, what I call soft injection molded, i.e. it's not hard and crisp. And very snappy. It's quite bendable and pliable, like the Hasegawa kits, things like that, or Tamiya. So it's what I call soft moulding. Generally all okay. We've got no ejector pins there. As you can imagine, very little in the way of details. These things aren't covered in access panels and all the things that you'd imagine sort of modern fighters to be. But you get an idea of the sort of scale, how big this thing's going to be. So it's going to sit on here, something like that, with wings. So you can have a wingspan of something like this. Okay. I'm sure it'll say it on the box somewhere. It has a wingspan of 230, sorry, length 230 millimeters and a wingspan of 420. So you're obviously going to need a little bit of shelf space for this one, even though it's very small. Looking around over it, we've got one-piece injected Hellfire missiles, which are these ones here. Okay, we've got the tails, all seem to be okay. No visible signs of flash, anything else like that. As I say, because it's soft injection, if you like, it's quite pliable and bendable, which in some ways is quite nice because you don't crack it. In other ways, though, you get this sort of texture to it, which is great if you're doing a flat surface, but if you want glossy, it sort of, you know, it's almost quite scritchy. But there we go, targeting pod, all the rest of it. Around the engine, we've got some riveting detail, which seems to be quite nice. Hellfire missiles and everything else. I would say the engraving perhaps is a little bit heavy on the actual sort of parts of it, it should be quite thin and crisp. And I do hate this one-piece moulded wheels, you know. Oh, come on guys, get it together. It's right pain for painting around them because you can't really get into the hub, and the detail's pretty lousy on those. But apart from that, not a bad kit. Don't know about pricing. As I say, I'm not going to say about pricing because I said it once before. We've got flames. Everyone's saying, "Oh, it's cheaper than that, such and such." And obviously, you know, you will find places online which are cheaper than others for it. All in all, if you want something a little bit different on your display case, something like that, or perhaps you are into the UAVs, obviously Skunk Works do the Global Hawk, which is the big one, and they do that one as well in 148, and obviously so you can have the Predator, the Reaper and Global Hawk for all the sort of UAV aircraft. So it said if you want something a little bit different and perhaps a weekend type build, then this is something to go for. So apart from having an oversized box, quite frankly, for what you sort of need it for, quite a nice kit, can't see any real problems with that, and probably be quite a fun build to do. Right, so next up we've got something I know a lot of people have been waiting for a while now. Now this is the Eduard MiG-21. Now don't think for a minute this is very similar to a situation we had with the Mirages or with the Su-25 Frogfoots, where it's a rebox of somebody else's kit. This is Eduard's own kit in here, okay? So, like me, you're looking at this at the same time. So first of all, we've got a zip bag, which is a bit different from all the clear parts. Okay, and as you can see in here, but that's it. As you can see in here, we've got the clear parts, which are extremely clear, which is very nicely done, for obviously multiple types of MiG, and obviously over time you're going to be having different versions of them coming out. So we've got 4 instrument panels, we've got 3 different types of canopy, 2 types of front canopy as well, although they do look extremely similar, but I'm sure they are different in some ways. Yeah, one has a squared off front and one doesn't, and everything else like that. So as I say, we've got some instruments and glass parts, but I must admit that's extremely clear. You know, apart from they've going to need a bit of a polish where they've been in the bag and moving, they've scuffed off the top, but very, very nicely looking bags like that. So we just pop him back in the bag. Okay, so first bag up. Let's have a look, see what we get. Right, so I presume what's going to happen with these kits is that they're going to have a situation where, I wonder if we can go through, right, where you're going to have common parts for a lot of them. First thing that comes out is that it's in this funny sort of gunship grey colouring. Extremely nice riveting detail. I'll bring you in for this one so you can have a look. So if you might be able to see it, it's in this grey, so it's quite hard to see. I'll catch it in the light, but we've got very, very nice, very, very crisp riveting detail. And I suppose what we're going to do with this one, we're obviously going to compare it, I suppose, to the only one that's around in this type of scale, which is going to be the Academy kit. And straight away, this one has got far, far better detail than the Academy kit. Obviously, we've got a lot of weapons parts on this particular sprue. But looking through, we've got no flash whatsoever, no mismolds. Looks absolutely crisp, very, very nice. So that's quite clever. Okay, this is the main, obviously, sprue we want to have a look at. This is our actual main parts here. So we've got the fuselage, and very, very nice the way, obviously looking how this one's going to go together, the wing section is going to come up from the bottom. Now if you built the Academy one, you'll know it's just got the slits and then you actually just feed the wings in and you go for it. So this one's got the entire moulded bottom. There again, looking at the detail and the panel line work and the riveting, extremely fine, a lot finer than I've seen on anybody else's kit. As I say, very, very nice. So yes, I must admit, no problem with any of those whatsoever. Same on the bottom here. The only thing that jumps straight out at me is that the dive brakes, the ones at the front, are closed and there's no way of opening. Oh, perhaps you could. There is some markings in here to open them up. I'll see if you can open them up in a minute. But it wouldn't be a problem to cut them open, I don't think, because we have got the little mould marks just down here. But there again, those wings are extremely fine. And I must admit, I've been working with a lot of 132nd recently, so this seems tiny. It feels like a 172nd. But very, very nice detail in these inner wheel wells as well. There again, it seems to be the new thing. I can point this out, it's quite a nice one. If you see up here, these little curves round, Okay, now obviously this is designed for something I've been working with a lot recently, for fibre optics. What you can do, you can put a light cable down here with a fibre optic pin on the end, and it wouldn't take much to reconnect that in. But because one of the problems I've been finding is when you're trying to feed cable around, you have to carve out the wing root because the sandwich is so thin. But this one has got them. So at some point, somebody's actually thought about this, and we've got them on the bottom half as well, to actually put lighting into them, which is a very, very nice idea. And as I said, something I've been playing with a lot recently. So let's just have a look. I'm not going to bother getting this one out. This one's weapons. So we've got raised panel lines for the fuel tanks on this particular one. And we've got a bag full of weapons here. So as you can imagine, we've got your standard sort of air-to-air missiles, short range and medium range. And then we've got a multitude of freefall bombs, ejector racks, things like that. Fuel tanks have got raised panel lines, which is quite nice because they do. The welds on Russian stuff tend to be on the outside of the fuel tank, where Western tend to be on the inside. So that's quite a nice piece. And the last one we're going to go through, which has all got all the little intricate bits. So we've got various things down here showing various sort of detail. All right, we're not talking like resin type of detail, but certainly a nice lot of detail for the wheel wells, compressor blades, sort of bulkheads as well. So that's all very, very nice. The only thing that I haven't seen jump out at me yet is the cockpit, which I'm actually looking for now. So that will be around in here somewhere, one would presume. So we've got a very nice hose line and detail in there. As I say, I'm being a bit of a spanner. Just have a bit of a glance around for it. As I say, when you're looking at the sprues, immediately it jumps out that we've got multiple parts for multiple different types of kits coming along here. So a lot of these parts are going to be kit specific. So be careful how you go through the build. Here we go, cockpit parts here. So we've got various mouldings of the seat in various separate locations. Compressor blades, all very nicely done. Engine looks quite nice at the back and everything else like that. So I must admit, if this animal is a completely different breed to the Academy kit, don't think for a minute you got the same kit. This one is far, far superior. Here we go. Obviously, as we've said, a lot of kit specific stuff here, so when you're down looking at the instructions, all the blue ones are going to be sort of a different version of the MiG, so make sure as you go through. Usual thing, starting in the cockpit, it works then through down to the engine, some nice detail around the engine. You build up the wheel wells, pretty much standard as you can imagine. Cockpit, you know, side panels being made up of 3 and 4 parts as well, which is something we don't normally see, so a lot more detailed than you would normally think. Multiple bulkheads running through the entire kit as well jumps out at me. The spine has always been the problem with the Academy kit, and the back end of the engine for the MF version especially, it was incorrect on the Academy one. This one, I must admit, it looks as if it's pretty well spot on, which is quite nicely. So yeah, I must admit, so we do have a way of opening up the speed brakes, which is something I just pointed out here. This is a red bit up here. So if you wanted to, you could cut open the dive brakes and have them in the open position, but you're going to have to cut them out to do that. It's nothing that isn't stand through. We've got a scribing template apparently, looking at the instructions up here, which says for scribing up the template for putting some of the decal options on, which is quite different. I must admit, I haven't seen anything like that before. So we've got moulded dive brakes as well. You can either have them in the closed or the open position via a separate part, which is a very nice touch. And going through, so you know, it's a detailed gear and everything else. I must admit, I'm not a fan of this multiple putting it together for the wheels, i.e. you have the hubs, then the tyres, and the tyres are in 2 halves to come together. Oh, just do it as one, it's so much easier for that. So anyway, yeah, I must admit, looking through this one, I am impressed. It does look very, very nice. So as you can imagine, very, very detailed in all your weapon selections, and this is one of the stunning things about this. Obviously the markings you can get. Obviously we've got Egyptian ones with this striking orange one, which obviously a lot of you know, but we've got some other different ones here. So we've got some very nice sort of Czech markings, Slovak markings. I must admit, I'm always a bit of a fan of this one. Polish ones. We've got the Russians. Nice to see a shark mouth. Seems to be a thing with Eduard at the moment. Everything that has a shark mouth. Obviously the East German or the democratic German markings, which anyone who's done the 132nd ones over the years will know those quite well. Stencil data, extensive, extremely, extremely extensive. Same thing, we've got a separate sheet for actually doing the weapons and everything else. But that's not it. We also get, which is something we'll talk about in a moment, a pair of rockets, rocket pods with the covers as well for the back end. Very nice, extremely crisp. You've got points on every single one of those rockets down in here, so they're very nice. Masking set, as you can imagine. Full colour photo etch as well, so that's very, very nice, I must admit. And then, as we were saying about these decals, we've got stencil data. Enjoy yourself, that's going to take a while, okay? And then we've got markings, so we say we've got them, as you can imagine, extremely well printed. Very, very, all perfectly in register. I'm just scanning across it. Yeah, all lovely in register. And they all look absolutely perfect. So very, very nice there. So if you are, in all honesty, in the market for a MiG-21, say that's the first time I've looked at that kit, and I have built quite a few of the Academy ones over the years. This one here is an absolute stunner. Very, very nice. We really like that one. So congratulations to them. Now, the other thing as well you do get as well, we've got more of these rocket pods here. As you can see, we've got the bigger version here for the two types of them. So you've got the larger rocket pods and the smaller. The smaller one is in there, the bigger ones aren't, and a couple of other bits and pieces. And we've got some photo etch for the rears of them as well. So that's extremely nice. And the other thing you can get for it as well is the wheel well. So these, we were saying about horrible how the wheels are in multiple positions. There you go, it takes care of this. You've got the wheel hubs as well, and then actually the actual wheels as it goes through. So they're a very nice touch, and as I said, we've got a bit of photo etch up to the top. So if you are thinking about it, certainly perhaps not the rockets, but a must have I would say is the wheels, because those other ones are really, really horrible. So there we go, that's the Eduard MiG-21. If you're into a MiG-21 and you want to do the MF, which is the correct MF, because it's got the spine, which is the correct one, and the back end is okay as well, that's the baby you're going to need. So there we go, that's that one. Next up, it's been around a little while, but it's the first time I've got my hands on it, is the Kinetic Tracker. So they did the Tracer, which is the one with that funny frisbee thing on the top, and obviously this is the one without it. So this one is really for anti-submarine warfare and things like that. To be honest, I have seen a couple of reviews about this one on the internet, and I must admit, some of it I agree with, and some of it I think it's a little bit nitpicky. So here we go again. As I say, I'm not going to grab all this out of the bags. Soft injection, so we were saying about that. I don't know, with Kinetic, I must admit, I did the Hawkeye, you might remember I did the Hawkeye and went to town on that. Multiple problems with that kit. It goes together okay, but you just have to sort of throw away the instructions sometimes, because really, some of the parts are a bit the wrong way round, the way it goes together, and some of the ejector pins didn't line, pins for locking it together didn't line up, things like that. Anyway, so here we go, we've got the actual kit itself, and we were saying clear parts, two halves of clear parts go together. Why do it that way? That drives me mad, because you get a glue line down through the middle. Luckily with this one there is going to be a bar going through, but obviously you can't use anything that's going to, any risk whatsoever of sort of fogging up the clear part. So you do get two clear parts go together. The aircraft itself, I must admit, after looking at that MF MiG there, and so fine the detail is, this one seems a little bit chunky and a little bit boring of the way it goes together, but very, very nice nonetheless. We've got the wing sections, all seem to be absolutely okay, and everything else like that. As I said, trench, I don't know, you're halfway through being on scale type of details. So panel lining, some of it looks a little bit trenchy, other bits look quite fine and recessed. Riveting doesn't seem to be too bad all over this one, so not too bad at all. Decals, as you imagine, these are the ones which were done by Fighter Town, so they're probably very nicely done, and then Cartograph have actually printed them up at the end of the day, so there's a bit of a joint thing between them. So you've only got the one option of actually markings on this one as part of the box art, but I'm sure the aftermarket chappies will be jumping on this one. Black and white instructions, pretty basic how it all goes together. The cockpit's pretty basic on this one, but you can't see much in them, as part of like the Hawkeye was. The only thing I will say is the engine nauticals, be careful how they go together, because this air scoop, they're both mirrored on each one, where in reality is they're both on the, I think it's the right or the left hand side. That's the only thing I'll say on that one. So there is something wrong in there. And as I say, going through it, it's pretty much standard as you imagine it all going through. As you can see, there's nothing really that's jumped out of me and seems to be a problem. and go through. So very nice. And as I say, a bit different with this one because the wing fold section flips right over on itself. It's not like the Hawkeye where they rotate and fold down the sides. This one, they go right over the top, sort of the old-fashioned way. And there's our marking for it. Nothing massively jumps out and bites here on this particular kit. I can't see any massive issues with it, and it's nice to see that Kinetic are sort of doing something where it of a kit that perhaps would be really overlooked by a lot of other manufacturers and everything else like that. So anyway, that's that one. Now this one is one I spoke about last week, and I have one for myself. This is mine, so now I can open it up, because unfortunately we brought a few in, and I sold them all really on the site, so all the members jumped on this as well. Now, being a bit of a Skyhawk fan, I wanted to go through and have a good look at this one, but obviously because of, well, I'd sold the kits, I didn't feel it would be right for me to get in here and cut them apart and have a good look at it, but seeing as this is my kit now, we'd be all right. So going through, looking at the detail on this one, as I say, obviously this one's going to be put on par with the Hasegawa have done a 1/32 Hawkeye. This is obviously going to be the new and updated version of it. To be honest, it looks very, very nice. We've got the riveting detail. I know everyone jokes about this, but obviously Trumpeter do have a habit of really going to town riveting and overscaling it, big chunky sort of rivets all over this one. But to be honest, these are absolutely very fine, and they're all only where you'd expect them as well. Sometimes they get a bit carried away and put rivets in everywhere, but that's a very nice sprue. We'll go along with that one. I mentioned this one last week. I won't get this one out of the bag because we talked about it, but the only thing is these vortex generators on this wings, which are the bits that stick out, look a little bit chunky to me for the scale, but apart from that, that's lovely detailing on the wing right the way through like that. And then, as I say, what have we got in here? I'm looking for ejector pin marks and seeing where they all are, and they all look like they're all in nice places. There again, vortex generators on these leading edge slats look a little bit chunky. Would you want to go around and play around with photo etch and put them in? I don't know. Personally, I don't think I'd want to stick photo etch all in there and everything else. Spoke about this one last week. This is the hump. Now, this is the big hump that goes on the top. As I say, very nice detailed. And because normally you're curving over a piece, the ejection, you know, getting hold of it does tend to be a bit of a problem. Very, very crisp all over. Must admit, we quite like that. It's very nice. The engine itself, massive ejector pins, but they're in the inside. So unless you're going to try something smart like I did when I did the Crusader, 1/32 Crusader, when I had the top of the engine open so you could see the compressor blades inside, you're not going to have a problem with it. So that is very, very nice. Wheel wells, we can have a look-see at these. Obviously full photos of these will be up on the site as well, so if I'm rushing through all of this, it's purely because I don't want to put everyone to sleep. Okay, so we've got down in here, a little thing I want to show you in here, we've got wheel wells, and they're quite nicely done. I must admit, we've got some nice different types of lining and everything else like that, so that's actually very nicely put together. And obviously we've got the gun pods are in here as well, so you've got the gun pod in this leading edge area, as well as the actual then the wheels for the gear. Nose ones as well, so you might be able to see just down in here we've got some very nice big hosing going on in there, which is something we don't normally see, things like that. These here I'm going to have to check on, but to me they look like ejector pin marks, which are a nightmare if they are that deep, but I say they look to be too rhythmic to me, so they might be part of the actual kit. We spoke about it before, this undercarriage legs that you see down here, we've got those in metal. There's that problem nose wheel, as you can see it's all moulded in one. Horrible, horrible, horrible. So anyway, next up is this is the important one. Obviously I presume they are planning on releasing a range of different kits with different fronts. So although we've got these very large doors here at the front, everything else, looking through, looking at the detail, how it's actually all moulded and how it all goes together, that looks all very, very nice. Got the refueling probe line running down the side here, everything else. Different to have these front doors open. As I said, different versions have different noses on here, so I presume there will be a brake for different types of fronts coming on this. It's funny how they've done the entire thing and haven't done it like the Hasegawa, just having the front end comes off, but there we go. I'm sure they know what they're doing. Seems to be very nice detail everywhere on that. I'm not going to go through the weapons bags because, as I say, you've done one trumpeter kit, you've done them all, they just tend to chuck them all. Got the big fuel tanks. I'm hoping it's got the back ends on. Yes, it has. I don't know if these are what they call the 400-gallon ones or whatever they are, but they certainly look big to me. As I said, various bits through all of that. Box is here. So in this box, what we actually have is the canopy. Now, a lot of people have said the canopy is wrong. Probably, because I wouldn't know myself. I'm just guessing at this point. It's very nice how they're packed away like this. As I say, when you see the canopy, it's very hard to see if it's correct or not, being not on the kit. When they're on the kit, they tend to look a little bit different. I would say the front looks, I don't know, a little bit shallow to me, but that's just, I'm not actually a Skyhawk expert or anything else, but what I will say is they're beautifully clear. Lovely clear parts. I must admit there's no real distortion in them when you sort of move it around and everything else like that. So I must admit I'm quite impressed with that. And it is nice that they take the time, you know, because obviously we just looked at the Eduard one, but they've taken the time to protect them up. So obviously somebody in a factory does this and wraps them all up and puts a little bit of tape on them. And just think of that aftercare that you get of your kit. Okay, photo etch parts, spoke about these before, said very nice. You know, obviously we've got some mirrors, harnesses, and then these bits here are going to be for the actual inside of the dive brakes on the side. To do those, and obviously multitude other clear parts, obviously weapons fit, tail lights and lights and everything else like that. And we've obviously got the gear and bits and pieces. So there we go, that is absolutely lovely to see those just together like that. Look, my box has come open in the end. I want my money back. Right, what else do we get? We actually get weapons fit. So obviously we've got decals here for Mark 82s, AGM 45s, for the Tiers and Mirs, and then AGM 12s, and then the Maverick missiles. Don't think they ever flew with Maverick missiles, if I'm honest, but there you go. There again, no expert, so I'll check your references. Very nice decals. As I said, we showed you this last week, but hey, why not? Both of these markings here show it without the hump, and it's something I'm going to look into because I'm going to do this kit and I'm going to do it with the hump because I think it looks better with the hump. But say, if you want the aggressor one, that's an absolute beauty to do as well. So very nicely to see those done. As I said, I didn't think we'd see a Skyhawk being redone after the Hashigawa one. Instructions, usual bits and pieces, as you can imagine how we go through, showing the actual engines, cockpit, how it goes together. To be honest, I had a look at the other one. The cockpit is a real weak part on this kit. For something in 1/32, I would love to see a detailed cockpit, and I think they dropped the ball on a lot of their kits recently, because obviously I have done quite a few of theirs. You know, I did the Crusader, I've done the actual the Harrier as well, and things like that. And I said, if you've seen those builds of those, you'll see that the cockpits are very basic. They're okay if you're going to have the canopy closed, because you're not going to see much in there, and perhaps you're going to put a crew figure in it especially, then you'd have no problem. But when you've got the canopy open, trying to show it off and everything else like that, they are a little bit basic. One way around that is an instant fix. You can obviously go ahead and get yourself a resin ejector seat for it and pop that in, and it'll fill it up a little bit straight away. But certainly for a kit of this price and scale, I would have thought the cockpit would have been a little bit better. I'd rather see a better cockpit, quite frankly, than having the engine fully detailed. So there we go, usual thing. So we've got the engine brake, shows how that all goes together. Canopy going on, you've got a separate rudder, separate ailerons, tailplanes, things like that. So obviously you can set them up exactly how you'd want them to be. And as we said, with the gear and the flaps and the air brakes and everything else, you can go ahead and put those all in there. It would be nice to see other versions of this one come along, and if they come along at, you know, a nice rate would be quite nice, because say there's some other beautiful Skyhawks out there, especially things like the Israeli ones and things like that. To see them as well. So there we go, that's really about it for that kit. It is a very nice kit. Say quite a lot of sprue, but for the money, is it worth it? I don't know, I'll let you know once I've built it really. If it goes together as well as it looks, then quite frankly we should be okay. If it goes together horrendously, then it might be a little bit overpriced for what it is. So there we go, that's it for this week of quick inbox look things. Hope you enjoyed it, and join me next week. Okay, so there we go. That's it for this week. Quite a long one, as you can see. Normally I do these sort of 20 minutes to half an hour, so with all these bits and pieces, it's taken up a long time and everything else. Don't forget the clocks go forward this weekend, so we will lose an hour in bed, but then we get nice and lighter evenings and everything else. Remember, that doesn't stop you modelling. It just gives you more natural daylight to work with, as I call it. So there we go. I'm off to mow the lawn and everything this weekend. Hopefully you'll get loads of modelling done. So until next week, everyone take care and happy modelling.